Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming tonight. It is May 8th, and this is the monthly education session hosted by the Florida End of Life Doula Alliance. And tonight we are going to be talking about advanced care planning. And my name is Meg Marr, and I am the secretary of the board for the Florida End of Life Doula Alliance. Shanti and Christine, would you like to introduce yourselves? And Chris?
Sure. I am a founding member of FEOLDA and acting president. And I'm in Gainesville, Florida. Took my doula training in 2018 and am just very grateful for this organization and what we have to offer. Thank you. Christine? Oh,
sorry.
no.
Christine Copperud. I'm on the Nature Coast up here west of Ocala, and I'm relatively new to Florida. I moved down 3 years ago, and I too was trained with the NELDA when they first took their training online, probably in just the early part of COVID. And if I take my video off tonight, it's not because I don't want to be here. It's because my connection has been unstable and I don't want it to interfere with recording.
My name's Chris, Tampa, Florida. I'm a death doula down here, just getting established, new to the area. Also on FEOLDA, and I help out with the education. And thank you all for coming. I see a few new faces and some familiar ones, so good to see you, everyone.
Yes, thank you all again. I am gonna share my screen.
Okay.
There.
Whoops. I just want to say hi. I'm Chris also. Real quick, I'm in Fort Lauderdale, and I was certified as a doula, but I'm taking Suzanne O'Brien's 12-week course, which we started last week, just to learn more about bringing. I've been doing some doula work, but I want to bring it more into the broader community down here. So I went to. I think I like her energy, and she has a lot to say and to teach. I'm looking forward to doing it. And thank you for starting this local chapter. And I hope to meet you all face to face someday. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Chris. It's nice to meet you. Would anybody else like to introduce themselves and say where they're from, what brought them tonight?
Yeah, I'll jump on real quick. Hi, my name is Heather Hensley. I live in the Brevard County, Cocoa Beach area, and I have my death doula training, but I don't utilize it. I do utilize it. I work in organ and tissue donation, so it's a little bit different. I'm not a practicing death doula, but the tools that it gives me has been very helpful. And I am going to be part of next month's lecture also. So I wanted to jump on and see how everything is and kind of put some faces to names before speaking next month. So thank you for having me.
I'll jump in real quickly. I'm Carrie Brackett. I've been in the Melbourne Beach, Brevard County area for a little over a year now. Came from Colorado, was active death doula in Colorado, and I specialize in longer term clients. I provide non-medical caregiving and end of life services. And I just got back from Colorado about 3 weeks ago, and my last client there passed. And I'm looking to get more involved and meet some people in the area, and looking for how we can support one another and encourage one another in this sacred work.
Andrea, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I'm Andrea, and I live in Sarasota, and just became certified through ANELDA in February, and so I'm just kind of trying to get my feet under me and figure out where to go and what to do. So I'm so glad everybody's here. So
Again, yes, us too. Thank you all so much for being here tonight. I'll go ahead and jump into our presentation. I think my presentation and slides are around 30 minutes, so then we'll have plenty of time for question and answers afterwards. And I do have one kind of case study or scenario in the presentation. So we're going to be talking about advanced care planning. So it's a topic that's deeply practical and also deeply personal. Advanced directives. So whether you're a doula, a related professional, or just a compassionate human thinking ahead, this conversation is relevant for all of us. So before we get started into the meat of it, I'll just say that this presentation is hosted by the Florida End of Life Doula Alliance, and what we're offering tonight is meant to be educational and supportive, not legal, medical, or financial advice. So some of what we talk about with advanced directives touches on legal documents and healthcare decisions. It's not legal advice, and I will do my best to share accurate and helpful information, but I am not an attorney, and this is not a substitute for professional legal guidance. We always say it's always best to double check with a professional or just double check whatever the current law might be, because laws vary from state to state, even county to county, and we know that laws change. So with that, my hope for everybody tonight is to leave with a stronger understanding of what advanced directives are, and especially how they work in Florida. We'll talk about the key documents, who gets to make decisions when no one is named, because yes, Florida has decided that, and how we as doulas, related professionals, and just caring humans can support others navigating these choices. So advanced directives can feel tricky and complicated, but they're really not. And it's not about legalese or mastering legal jargon. It's just about being a steady presence. So why should we talk about advanced directives? Why should we make these plans? We plan for everything else in our lives, big milestones, small ones, birthdays, graduations, vacations. Heck, we even meal plan. We plan our dinners for the following week. At least I try my best to. But we often avoid planning for this one thing that is guaranteed for all of us. So what happens if we don't talk about our end of life choices, then we're setting up our loved ones to kind of be scrambling in a moment of crisis. When decisions are made ahead of time, families can focus on what really matters, being present. And that can bring a sense of calm because the unknown feels a little less overwhelming when you've named your wishes and shared them. Planning ahead also means avoiding like super rush decisions, or you're in the heat of an emergency and just struggling to make the right choice. What is the right choice? What would mom want? What would dad want? So when we plan now, we lift that burden, and our family members and our people can just be with us rather than having to wonder what the right decision is to make. So we know how important it is to talk about it, but I think we also know that our society doesn't really like to do that. Our society maybe leans a little more towards death phobic rather than death positive or anything else in between. So why? Why is that? I think for many, it's rooted in fear, fear of death itself, fear of losing control. And so it just might feel better to put it off in denial and just pretend that it's not happening. But we all know denial is not an advanced care plan. Sometimes cultural norms can be part of it too. In some families, talking about death almost feels like it's inviting it in. I've been told before, in my family, we just don't talk about dying. It's bad luck. And another thing I've heard is people are afraid that they're going to upset their loved ones. I recently had a client tell me, I don't want my kids to think I'm giving up. As she was like thinking about her living will and, deciding what she wanted as far as treatment or not. But I think planning ahead doesn't mean we're losing hope or giving up. It means we're making sure that no matter what, our wishes are known and respected, and we're helping our loved ones know what to do. And also, no matter how much we know all of this, I think it's normal to feel hesitant about starting these conversations. They are hard conversations, and it can feel uncomfortable to talk about scenarios related to dying and to our loved ones dying. As I like to say, and we can move past that discomfort, and moving through it is truly an act of love. An advance directive is really just a formal way of saying, here's what I want if I'm not able to communicate it myself. It's really about values. You're putting in writing who should speak for you and what kinds of care align with your values. This can include what types of life-sustaining treatment you do or don't want, who you trust to make decisions for you, and how you'd like your body to be cared for in those final stages. Florida has specific documents and requirements, and I believe they're pretty similar across all the states, but they are specific to Florida. So if someone has moved here from another state, it's always a good idea to take a look at your existing advance directives and kind of compare them to Florida's documents and requirements and just make sure everything aligns. So the healthcare surrogate designation is where you choose someone in advance to make healthcare decisions for you in the event you can't speak for yourself or in the event you become incapacitated. Then a living will lets you specify what you want or don't want if you're facing a terminal condition or in a vegetative state. Then also in Florida, we have a DNR, and many other states have a POLST or a MOLST. Florida doesn't have that. We just have a DNR, and it's the one document in all of in these advanced directives that must be signed by a physician. And also Florida is specific that it needs to be printed on yellow paper. Another wonderful document that is not part of the Department of Health and Human Services, like state of Florida documents, but it's completely legal in Florida, is 5 wishes. So 5 wishes is more narrative and personal than the state forms, but it is legally recognized here. And it's really a great tool to kind of walk through the advanced directives process. So I touched on before a little bit how Florida has a decision tree, for lack of a better term, for who makes healthcare decisions if a healthcare surrogate is not named. So there is a default order, and it starts with your spouse, then your adult children, and on down the line. But those people might not know your wishes, or you might not be in close contact with those people, or you might intentionally not be in contact with them. There might be conflict. So choosing someone ahead of time lets you stay in control, and it removes that burden from loved ones. Otherwise, they're gonna be left guessing. I wholeheartedly believe that choosing a healthcare surrogate is one of the most important decisions we can make. And I also truly believe that it's not just about who we love. Often it is our spouse who is our healthcare surrogate. And many times that is a wonderful person. But it's not just about who we love. It's about who will follow through, who will stay calm in a hospital setting, who can speak to doctors clearly and confidently, who won't second guess your choices, even if they're emotionally tough. It's also really good to name a backup because everything is unpredictable. We never know what's going to happen. So kind of having a backup plan B, it's all part of good planning. So we can think about the people in our lives who would respect your choices, even if they didn't personally agree with them. I think you really want somebody who can handle the emotional weight of making healthcare decisions and communicate clearly with medical professionals. So let's say we've identified for ourselves who we think would be a good healthcare surrogate for ourselves, for ourselves. Then we of course want to have a conversation with them. We want our healthcare surrogate to know that they are our healthcare surrogate, because if they don't know, that's no good. So starting that conversation, it might feel hard. It might feel like a major event, but it doesn't have to be. Like, we don't have to wait until the next holiday where everybody's gathered around the table, we're cutting the turkey. It's also a great, conversation then too, but we don't have to wait for some big event. I think just any moment is a good moment to start the conversation. One client I worked with kept putting off talking to her brother, who she had identified as her healthcare surrogate. She was just worried that it was going to turn into a fight, and that, she wondered if he would be able to uphold her wishes. But finally, it just, the act of not having a conversation with him was weighing on her more than her fears about how it would go. So she finally just, over coffee said, I've been thinking about what would happen if something happened to me. And I just want to make sure you know what my wishes are and that I'm not a burden. And the conversation went so much better and with more ease than she thought it would. It kind of opened up the door to let both of them talk to each other and share their values and their wishes. I think another helpful entry point to start a conversation is to use a story. Like, I just heard on the news, or I just read about a family who didn't know what their dad wanted at the end. And it really got me thinking, what would we do if we were in that situation? It kind of makes it less about forcing a specific discussion about you or about them. And it's just kind of opening the door because we're talking about somebody else's experience. And also sometimes just naming the uncomfortable elephant in the room, just identifying and naming the discomfort can help. Could say something like, I know this feels really hard and this is heavy and I'm feeling really uncomfortable bringing it up, but it's been on my mind and I'd love to share my thoughts with you. And 5 wishes that I mentioned before is a wonderful tool that gives a great starting point, and also the conversation project. So the conversation project isn't actual advanced directives the way 5 wishes is, but they have wonderful guides about starting the conversation, having the conversation. It's a wonderful tool. I think when we think about living wills, sometimes it can feel like it's saying no to care. No, I don't want intubation. No, I don't want to be resuscitated. But I think it's really about saying yes to the kind of care that aligns with your values. And with a living will, you can be as specific or as general as you want. Would you want artificial nutrition? Or would you want to be kept alive on a ventilator if there's no hope for recovery? These decisions are all deeply personal, and the living will allows you to say what feels right for you. It's really about making sure that your care, what you want and what you don't want, aligns with your core beliefs. For some people, their focus might be on pain management. Like, I've heard many times, like, just give me all the medication. I don't care if I'm in la la land. I just want to be comfortable. And for other people, the importance is on maintaining dignity and independence and like what that means for them. So with the living will can really document what feels authentic to who you are. So the last of the Florida forms is the DNR form. And I think sometimes this can be misunderstood. I've heard many times that folks thinks it means do not treat, that like, you sign the DNR form, that means that's it. We're done with everything. No treatment, no pain medicine, no nothing. We're done. But it's not what the DNR form means. It just means do not attempt resuscitation if my heart stops. And this form is typically appropriate for someone with a life-limiting illness who has decided that they want a natural death and they don't want any aggressive measures. In Florida, this is the one form in the advanced directives that must be signed by a physician. And as I said before, Florida is particular about it being printed on yellow paper. So it's in hospice, I know it's often recommended to hang it on the refrigerator, so it's very easy to find. And I think a big reason for that is because if there's ever a situation where first responders are called in, if there is not a DNR form, then first responders are legally obligated to perform resuscitation, even if you don't want it. And even if you've stated in your living will that you don't want it, even if you have a DNR form that is somewhere not readily available, that is what they are legally obligated to do. But again, this form isn't for everybody. For example, a otherwise healthy 39-year-old isn't going to have a DNR form. This is really something that somebody talks to their physician about and completes with their physician. I think this part of end-of-life doula work can be so impactful. You know, we're not medical experts. We specifically provide non-medical care, and we're certainly not legal experts. But I think a commonality across all of us is we are deeply skilled at creating safe, open space to help people think through these decisions. We listen, we help people organize their thoughts, and can offer a calm presence in what can feel like a very tumultuous time. And I think an extra helpful part is we're not part of the family system. We're like, you know, 1 degree, couple degrees removed. We're a neutral third party. So we can bring that neutral voice when tensions might be high or grief might be clouding communication. We can ask families gentle but direct questions like, what are your biggest fears about medical interventions? And who do you trust to make decisions if you're not able to? We can help guide gently but directly. So I forget the statistic, but it's a rather small percentage of you know, adults in the United States who have completed their advanced directives. And I think there are so many reasons that people put it off. They might feel they're too young, or they think their family is just going to know what to do. I think, you know, it's my family, you know, we know each other so well, they'll know what to do. But I think in reality, that's not how it plays out at all. It just leaves family and loved ones guessing. So I think as doulas and, you know, related professional advocates, we can help people take that first step, whether it's thinking about who their surrogate might be, writing down a couple notes about what kind of care they would or wouldn't want, or just encouraging them to start a conversation with their loved ones. It's natural to feel uncomfortable talking about death because it's sad. It's sad when our loved ones die or our people die. And also, we can still talk about it. You know, not talking about it doesn't make it not happen. So just like not planning for it is not going to prevent it. It just means that others are going to have to make choices for you. So something that's not part of like the regular advanced directives are 2 dementia directives. These would be considered addendums. So we have the regular advanced directives, healthcare surrogate, and living will. Then there are also these two dementia addendums. So if a person has early stage dementia and still has capacity to make decisions, they really have a valuable opportunity to take their directives a step further. The two tools, tongue twister, are the Dartmouth Dementia Directive and then the Compassion and Choices Dementia Values and Priority tool. And both are readily available online at no cost. And they just let people express how they want to be cared for, not just at end of life, but during the progression of memory loss. I think for many people, this can bring a lot of peace of mind. I've heard many times from people that just they don't want to burden their families if they ever get to the point of like end stage dementia. So it can bring a lot of peace of mind to somebody. And it also brings a lot of peace to family members who might struggle with when to shift care or stop certain interventions. So it's just another specific tool to say, here's what I want if I'm not able to tell you later. So I thought it would be good to have a little interaction. So you're not just listening to me talky this whole time. So this is I created this fictitious, but very much in the realm of reality type scenario. So, we have an 86-year-old woman who has dementia and signed a DNR with her physician when she had decision-making capacity. She's also designated her daughter as her healthcare surrogate, and her daughter disagrees with the DNR. So, questions to think about, and anybody can just jump in and share their thoughts or raise your hand or anything. Like, who has legal authority in this situation? Is it the daughter because she's the healthcare surrogate, or is it the DNR form? And how might a doula help support this family?
I'm shooting from the hip, but I think the DNR would stand.
Yes, you are correct. The DNR trumps. Yes, as a DNR form it's a physician's medical order. It's not just like our wishes the way designating a healthcare surrogate is. So it's in the statutes, the Florida statutes, that no one can override a valid DNR except the individual who assigned it with their physician or another physician if there's medical justification. So her daughter, in this scenario, her daughter, as her healthcare surrogate, can make decisions for her once she's incapacitated, but not before. That's a key point of designating our healthcare surrogate, is they kind of, that role springs to life, for lack of a better term, once we become incapacitated, once we can no longer make our own decisions, and not before then. So even though yes.
Well, I was going to say, but with that's a very fuzzy line, right? And it can change one day. There's alertness, the next day not.
As far as capacity?
Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, it does. It does it is a fuzzy line. As far as the DNR, I think the DNR is valid as long as it was signed when someone had capacity. But then when the healthcare surrogate kind of steps in, right, it can be a bit of a gray area. Sometimes it's not always, oh, we no longer have capacity. It's not like we're switching off the lights. So yeah, it's not easy. Sometimes there's not like cut and dry, if this, then that. How do we think a doula could support this family?
I'm wondering if it's possible in the state of Florida to have an alternative surrogate on the DNR and a primary, should the primary choose to decline duties to be assigned to the secondary, or if the surrogate would be allowed to appoint another surrogate in his or her place.
So I do know that that yes, you can absolutely in your advanced directives name a second surrogate with that exact type of language. If my primary surrogate is not available or chooses not to assume the duties as surrogate, then this next person will be surrogate. That's a really good question, though, about can a primary surrogate appoint someone else? I think my thinking, I'm just, off the cuff here, if that language was in the advanced directives, like if I had that language in my advanced directives, if my healthcare surrogate does not want to serve as my healthcare surrogate or is unable to, they may appoint somebody else. If that language is in there, then I would think that would be valid. But I don't know how it would go if that language wasn't in there. I don't know if a healthcare surrogate could just, assign that role to somebody else if that wasn't specifically stated by the person. A good question.
That makes good sense, though, Megan. It's a slippery slope. Excuse me,
It
to have
is.
a declining surrogate appoint a secondary. Thank you very much. I appreciate you.
Yes. Yes, you're so welcome. I'm just reading through the chat a little bit. When I share screen, the chat gets really small and almost disappears. So yeah, I just wanted to sure I'm not missing anything super important. So I think a way doulas, if in this scenario, I think a way doulas could support this family is really, it comes back to holding space and active listening, holding space for both the mother's autonomy and agency to make her own choices and the daughter's emotional response. A doula could validate the daughter's fear and maybe feeling some anticipatory grief. And I think there could be a reframe on the DNR, like reframe it as an act of agency and autonomy and peace, not giving up. And then just making certain that the daughter understands what the DNR means, that it's not a do not treat form, that hospice is still could very much be involved, comfort care, all of that. So something I haven't really touched on yet, we've talked about backup surrogate, and I think we have lots of, good questions that have come up from that. But something I haven't touched on that I think some people do, and I think is a great idea, is a video, making a video of your advanced directives. I think this can be an excellent addition to the written advanced directives. I'm pretty sure in Florida we can't have just a video only, but having them in addition to the written advanced directives is wonderful. In this scenario, it would reinforce the mother's capacity, because I'm, making the assumption this video would be made with decision-making capacity. So it would really reinforce her capacity and what her preferences are. Seeing a video, seeing someone and hearing their voice, it really humanizes the choices that they're making. So hearing that, the daughter could hear her mom's voice, her tone, and her reasons. I think that could soften any resistance that she might feel.
So, I was just going to say one quick thing, I think, and then Philip wants to speak.
Yeah.
I guess the thing would be, could you give that video, whether it's a YouTube or a link or whatever, could you give it to your doctor and put it in your medical record? Because the daughter might have seen it or not and not want to see it, or they might be really belligerent about it. So I wonder, I could do a test run with my doctor and see what he says. But that was just a thought. Yeah, so
that is a great thought, and I would love to hear how that goes with your doctor. I think I'll do a test run too. My physicians all use my chart, which is like, the big EMR medical record. So I'm going to look in that. I've seen things in there about advanced directives, and I wonder if a video could be uploaded, because
that's going to push me to do it.
Yes, me too. Philip.
Thanks. I just wanted to add to what you're saying. I started off with videos a couple of years ago. My wife won't even talk to me about end of life issues, and so I started off doing videos, and mostly they were made for, these are things you need to know. This is how you change an air conditioning filter. This is how you change a tire. This is how, those kinds of things. But then it got to just me just talking about stuff. But over the past year, I've gotten into AI in a really big way. And I've started using my AI to leave my last thoughts. And all she has to do, in fact, there's an instruction on a little flash drive that I left to her. Go to my computer, open AI, give it this command, and it will pull up everything for you to read and know. There's all the passwords for all of our accounts, how to pay the electric bill, just anything that comes to mind. I've started to use AI to put all that down. So it's easy. She sits down at my computer, one click, and it's like me talking to her. And you can have it play videos for different things if you want. So that was just kind of an addition to making videos.
That is just incredible, Philip. So incredible. I think you could do a presentation on just that, like kind of the operations, the step-by-step of like how you set that up and created that, because that's it. It ties in with advanced directives, but then it goes beyond that, and it gets into so many important other things that we want to hopefully want to share with our people.
I don't want to dominate the conversation here, but I tried an experiment not long ago where I asked my AI assistant, I've named it Data because I've created a real personal relationship with it. Tell me everything you know about me. You know, over the past year, what have you learned about me? And I was astounded at what it wrote back. It knows what kind of pen I enjoy using. It knows what my favorite music is. It knows what kind of music I would want at a funeral. I mean, little things that I would never even think I was telling it. It was absorbing all this information. So if anybody, and on the other side of that, you're really scared if law enforcement gets into your AI because they'll know every little detail of your life. But it's great if you want your family to know every little detail of your life.
Yeah. Yeah. That could be like, it's one part, like lots of practical, helpful things for your family, but also such a gift to kind of, have all those little like tidbits and memories and knowing all those little things. That is really, really, really special. Carrie, you have your hand up?
I do. Good evening, everyone. Firstly, Philip, I absolutely vote for that to be brought into this conversation in a deeper way, that we have a workshop or something, because that is amazing. I have a 33-year-old son who, even though knows that I grew up in the advent of tech, still thinks that I'm sort of out of it. And I'm like, no, dude, I'll be out of it in like 20 years from now. But if I come up with something like that, we're done. So thank you for sharing. The question that I had was specifically for the DNR, because it says life limiting. That does not mean terminally diagnosed. Does it? Or do you have to have, like, for example, I get in a car accident and I'm like DNR or whatever it is. So does it have to be a diagnosis or life limiting according to who?
So the DNR, so let's talk about, yes, if you say you get in a car accident and, you're unconscious, you can't make your own decisions. If you have completed advanced directives and you have named your healthcare surrogate, then that person will be able to make decisions for you.
Okay.
So there's that piece. Then the DNR, the form that would be filled out with your physician, is really separate, and it is more for, like I said, life limiting or terminal. I think like if somebody has cancer and they've decided to stop treatment, then it would be a form that they would fill out with their physician. I kind of see the DNR as just like another extra layer of making sure your wishes are honored in the situation of having like a life-limiting illness. Especially thinking, sorry, I was just going to say, like, I think especially in situations where maybe somebody's in like an assisted living facility, if there's not a DNR, then there's absolutely going to be like CPR happening. So, yeah.
I was going to say, with the living will, it specifies that two physicians have to both agree that it's either little or no chance of recovery from, and it's 3 conditions: a coma, terminal illness, imminent, and then there's one other, but it's very specific in the document. I don't have it in front of me. But 2 doctors sign off on it. I believe that's right.
Yeah, I think that is correct. It's like 2 different physicians kind of have to agree to the same thing. Yeah.
Thank you for answering my question.
Yeah, you're welcome. So I talked a little bit about, 5 wishes before and the conversation project. They're both excellent tools. 5 wishes. I love 5 wishes personally. It's written in like accessible, easy to understand language, and it really walks through filling out the advanced directives and is legal in Florida. So I think these are all great tools that we can use for ourselves, with our families, share them with clients. The website caringinfo.org, you can go to that website and then you can choose your state. We could choose Florida, you could choose any state. It's like one-stop shopping for getting all of the state forms. So that's a great resource to have too.
Can you repeat that, please?
Yes, I'm sorry. It's cannotkinds.org.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Christine?
Really good.
Yeah,
Your presentation was really good. Just really concise and just perfect. Just
well,
enough.
thank you. Thank you. Christine, do you have your hand up?
Okay. Dude, on purpose.
Okay. I always like to check because I've definitely raised mine not on purpose before.
I am wondering about multiple residences and which directives would apply. So if a person has a home in Florida and elsewhere, or something should happen to anyone elsewhere, what happens?
That is a great question. And I think that's an important thing for to consider, because that is the reality for especially many people in Florida. A lot of our residents split their time with other states. I do not know for sure. I'm just shooting from the hip here, but my thinking is that probably whatever state somebody is in, when kind of if something happens, then it's going to be whatever the requirements or laws are in that state. But I'm going to look into this some more because I am very curious about this. It's relevant for me personally because my dad and his wife split their time between here and another state. So, right. So they, if somebody has completed their advanced directives in Florida, then if something happens in another state, because really something could happen to any of us at any time. So what happens in another state? Yeah, thank you, Christine. Good question.
Maybe my chart has the answers.
Right, my chart? Yes, it might. So I know we're almost at 7 and I want to respect everybody's time. So I just want to bring us back to what I think is truly the heart of this work and advanced directives. I think it's not just about the paperwork, though the paperwork is important. It's about having control over your care. And I think it's about making choices now so that if the time comes when we can't speak for ourselves, then our values and preferences are still honored. Naming a healthcare surrogate is really one of the most powerful ways to protect your voice, because it means that when you can't speak, someone who truly understands your wishes and your values will be your advocate. I think this step alone can make all the difference in helping to make sure your care and your wishes are followed. So I think, when we plan ahead, even when it's these hard things, and when we move through having these maybe uncomfortable conversations, we reduce a lot of stress and possibly conflict for the people that we love. and they're not being left to guess and wonder what we might want or not want. So like, I just always think that advanced care planning and completing our advanced directives is just the greatest gift we can give our people. So I will leave it at that. Give a gift. The gift of them, knowing, you know, knowing what you want.
I just noticed there was one hand up. Could we just take a minute to hear from Heather?
Oh, yes, definitely.
I'm
Sorry, it's hard
sorry.
for
Yeah.
me to see everybody.
That's great. Yeah, just one last thing.
I just wanted to
Yeah.
speak real quick to a couple of the questions. I know Carrie had asked about a vehicle accident. I came out of EMS fire department, but we're trained. DNRs are for long terminal illnesses. That's what they're for. So if you're getting a car accident on the way to go get chemo, the DNR does not apply. Life-saving measures would be given to you until you arrive at the hospital. If it's terminal at that point, then they would talk to your caregiver or your surrogate or your spouse or whoever's in charge of making that decision. So I just wanted to speak to that. And then the second one, I forgot the second point, Meg, that you were making. I'm so sorry. As time went by, I was like, yeah, just let it go. So I apologize. There was a second one that was similar with the follow-up of the reciprocity between the states on a DNR. They're
Yes.
not. The laws are different in each state. So it is best to advise to get a DNR in each state that your family is traveling, if they're snowbirds or what have you. That is that part too. So.
Yes, that makes sense. That, yeah, as far as the DNR goes, that is definitely state specific. Like, I know there's, you know, some states like Minnesota has a MOLST form. They don't have a DNR, they have the MOLST, and you know, we don't have that here. So Heather, what do you think about, not, I guess I am putting you on the spot and you can decline if you want. What do you think about maybe somebody who doesn't have a DNR, you know, that's not relevant for them, but they have their advanced directives completed, you know, they've chosen their healthcare surrogate and they've identified what they want or don't want in their living will. How would that kind of come into play across state lines?
So from my experience is they always try to honor those. There is the legality if it's expired or is forgotten, it was just verbalized. And usually what ends up happening is we kind of try to slow the conversation down and bring in and find out what's driving some of the concerns. Does the significant other feel as though they're not doing enough if they were to just withdraw care or make those decisions? So really it was slowing the conversation down. What is the true meaning? Did she or he verbalize this to you in the past? Okay, this might be different, you know, so they try to really honor the patient, the person who is passing as much as possible.
Yeah, that's good to hear. And that's kind of how I think
Yeah,
it would
there is a
be.
question. It said the advanced directive, which is included in DNR, is legal in all 50 states. You're correct. It's just the DNR sometimes are signed under different circumstances. So in an emergency, if we show up, like when I was in EMS and I'm in Florida and I've got a Pennsylvania DNR, we'd have to legally take the patient to the hospital. We would try to not maybe just bag instead of CPR and do those things to get there. So the attending physician can make that decision. The person that I've had to do this was older and had a lot of comorbidities. So we didn't want to you don't want to break their ribs doing CPR. It's not, it's very tough, especially on elderly and frail. So.
Can
Sorry.
I add one
Thank
thing
you.
to what Heather just said? Heather, you came from a organ and tissue background.
Currently do that now. My
did it.
background, yeah, I did a lot with EMS, fire, the jail system, overseas disaster teams, and then moved into EMS or what I do now.
Back in the 90s, I worked with the organ donor program in Nashville. And what we always did, because being Nashville, you had people coming from out of state visiting. And if we ever ran into that, we just saw, and there wasn't something written down somewhere. We just fell back to the next of kin. Whoever was the legal next of kin, they get to make the decision.
And this will be next month's topic, part of it. But when you put yes on your driver's license, that is a legally binding document. Your family cannot supersede that. So there is a hierarchy we follow also, very similar to what you have on who is officially next of kin. And but you're correct, Philip. There are the next steps that come into play with that.
Just checking to make sure I'm not missing any hands up. Well, thank you so much for coming tonight. I really enjoyed spending this time together and just being able to talk and hear everybody else's questions and thoughts and comments. So thank you so very much. And I saw Christine put in the chat the registration link for the June presentation and educational session, which Heather is going to be joining us at. So we hope to see you all again next month.